Hello, and welcome to my Natural State Bonsai channel. Today, we're going to discuss greenhouses and all of the advantages and disadvantages of having them. Today is going to be a little bit different kind of presentation. I will have to use some of my notes, so you'll occasionally see me looking down from time to time. But other than that, this is mostly going to be about greenhouses. Now, I don't proclaim to be an expert on greenhouses by any stretch of the imagination. However, I did do some research, and that's one of the reasons why I will have to look down at my notes from time to time. And then, if I have to do that, I will read what's in my notes, and then I'll probably give some brief description or a brief explanation of what I think that means. So, with that said, let's get started. So, what is a greenhouse? Well, a greenhouse is a structure that is used to control the humidity and temperature inside of a large, uh, usually transparent building or frame that will allow the sun to come in and to maintain a certain semblance of a temperature. Most of the time, these structures are built with glass, polycarbonate, or plastic film. This allows the light to come through, and sometimes it is shaded or muted as it passes through into the greenhouse. And other times, people allow the sunlight to go directly through. So basically, a greenhouse is just a structure that can contain your trees or your plants that will allow temperatures to be monitored and moderated, and it also allows for a longer growing season. But to be honest, we're talking about the structure itself, and a greenhouse can actually be a cold house, and I'll explain what that is also. But there are really three types of little structures like that for overwintering. There's the greenhouse, there's the cold house, and of course there's a cold frame. And I'll explain what a cold frame and what a cold house is now. A cold frame is usually a low-lying structure with some sort of transparent ceiling or overlay on top of it that is not heated, but allows temperatures to drip down as low as they need to go, but it protects the plants or trees from frost and other things that could kill the plant. Usually these structures are on the ground, and they are made with either bricks or wood, and like I said, they're overlaid with either plexiglass or transparent plastic. So what is a cold house? A cold house is actually in between a greenhouse and a cold frame. And I'll describe it the way that I use my cold house is that I bring my trees and plants in, mostly trees, when there starts to become colder weather, especially when there's danger of frost. I'll bring those inside of the cold house, and I have a heater that I have in there, and that heater will maintain a certain temperature that is above freezing so that these trees do not get frost or die from being frozen or whatever. I'm in Arkansas, so we have temperatures that fluctuate anywhere from 0 or slightly below to 30, 40 degrees on typical days. And so we even have a high number of ice storms in this area. And so that's another reason why I consider using a cold house instead of a greenhouse. And with that said, let's talk a little bit about the advantages and disadvantages of greenhouses. And when I refer to greenhouses now, I'm actually referring to greenhouses and cold houses. I'm not talking about cold frames at all. So we have temperatures that range anywhere from 0 or slightly below to 30s and 40s between the months of November and late February, early March. And so for that reason, I like to keep all my trees in my cold house and keep it heated. The temperatures can vary depending on what I have in there. This year, I do plan to put all of my portulacarias in there, so I will keep the temperature a little bit warmer than I did last year. Last year, it hovered around 40 degrees, 41 degrees. This year, I'm probably going to take it up to about 48 degrees. That's not ideal for some of the trees that I'll have in there, but it's not going to, I don't think it'll affect them too much. So let's talk about some of the benefits of greenhouses and cold houses and how they can benefit our trees. Number one, they can extend the growing season, especially if you're growing plants. And but it also provides excellent protection for your trees during those gray areas when the temperatures fluctuate between freezing and the time that you could bring them outside, which means you don't have to do as much bonsai shuffle. Greenhouses also can control your climate, which means you can control the heat and the level of cold that you want in the greenhouse. It protects the trees from weather, from harsh weather, things like ice storms and wind, um, heavy rains. So you can control not only the temperature, but you can control the moisture levels and things like that in a greenhouse. For people in really cold climates, those up in the north, it allows you to actually grow your trees all year long if you want to. And so for that reason, a greenhouse or a cold house is an excellent way to be able to do that. And finally, it allows you a place to go during the wintertime, especially if you're using it as a cold house, to just go and relax, look at your trees, inspect them, make sure that everything is looking okay and healthy. Occasionally, make sure that the moisture levels in the soils are where you want them to be, and to make sure that they are free of pests, things like rats and mice and things like that. And just gives you a great place to go and relax. So before we get deep into the greenhouse, cold house discussion, I want to talk a little bit about levels. And if you ever watched the TV show Seinfeld, you'll know that Cosmo Kramer talked about levels. So let's talk about levels. There are all kinds of levels in bonsai. There are levels of affordability. There's levels of quality. There's levels of your enthusiasm and in your endeavors to grow the best trees. So there's all kinds of levels. I just wanted you to be aware that just because somebody can afford a large glass greenhouse doesn't mean that everybody has to afford a large glass greenhouse. Some people can only afford a a hoop house or a small 4x6 polyethylene vinyl greenhouse. Just know that there are levels to everything that we do. Some people don't have enough area to have all of their trees that they want, so they're limited in the amount of trees that they have. Again, that's just another level of what they can do with their trees and things like that. The first greenhouse we're going to discuss is the glass greenhouse. That's the cream of the crop. And those can be made out of either window panes or glass. And they allow 100% transmission of light unless you put some sort of shade cloth on them. And they're easy to take care of. One of the disadvantages is they're easily shattered and can be dangerous sometimes. They can also add a touch of elegance to your backyard, and they can even be made to fit in with the decor or the landscaping of your backyard. Some of the disadvantages are they cost a lot of money. They have a high fragility rate, and the insulation is really not that great with a glass greenhouse. The next kind of greenhouse is a polycarbonate greenhouse, and polycarbonate greenhouses are probably what we see the most of. And these greenhouses can cost anywhere from $500 up to $10,000, depending on what kind of polycarbonate you use. There's two kinds of polycarbonate. There are polycarbonate sheets that are solid, and there's also polycarbonates that's a twin wall that you're using in the greenhouse. The twin wall polycarbonate sheets are good about helping with shading inside of the greenhouse because it diffuses the light. I have noticed that some of the twin wall polycarbonate sheets are kept in with clips, and those are very susceptible for winds coming up and knocking those panels out and you having to replace them. So be real careful with the kind of greenhouse that you get that uses polycarbonate, and try to avoid the ones that use clips. If you do use clips, you can caulk those in or use silicone to glue them in. But again, I still would avoid the greenhouses that use polycarbonate or use the clips. I'm sorry. Now the polycarbonate solid sheets can come in different thicknesses. Obviously, the thicker the sheet, the more cost is going to be involved. The particular greenhouse that I have has got the thinner sheets, but the sheets actually fit down channels that are on the frame of the greenhouse. And I've had winds 60 miles an hour here at this house, and those panels have not budged. It's very important that you get them in tight, and once they're in tight, you don't really have to worry about them, at least not at 60 miles an hour, 60-mile-an-hour winds. So they are they're excellent. They're much better insulator than the twin wall, and much better than the glass greenhouses. So it's easy to heat those kind of greenhouses, and I highly recommend it. I do put a shade cloth on my greenhouse, and that does keep the heat down during the summertime, although I don't keep any trees in my greenhouse during the summertime. The next kind of greenhouse that we're going to talk about are the polyethylene, and I've been doing bonsai for about 5.5, 6 years now. And the very first greenhouse that I ever tried was a small polyethylene greenhouse. That's basically just a plastic vinyl type thing, and it lasted 2 years. It was just a small 4x6 greenhouse. I could only put about 40 trees in there, small trees, and I did heat it the last year that I had it, but the sun broke that down very, very quickly, and so after 2 years, I got rid of that. And then again, we go back to levels, and I decided to invest a little bit more money, and that's when I bought my polycarbonate greenhouse that I currently am using. The advantage to polyethylene greenhouses, it's a great way to start if you want to do that. The cost is very minimal. They're easily erected and taken back down for seasonal use. And overall, the disadvantages, they're highly susceptible to wind because it's hard to anchor them to the ground. And so that's the use of polyethylene greenhouses. The next type of greenhouse is an acrylic greenhouse. You don't see these very often because the cost is very high. Usually these sheets are a little bit thicker than the polycarbonate, and they're just really expensive to build and to maintain. And so you don't see a lot of these acrylic greenhouses around. So let's talk about cost. And I'm going to base all this on like an 8x12 greenhouse for all of these different types of greenhouses that we're going to talk about. So a cost for a glass greenhouse can range anywhere from 5,000, 10,000, 15,000, up to 25,000, maybe even more than that, depending on the type of structure you're going to build, the size, the location, how you want it to fit in with the landscaping of your home. So, and I've seen them as low as $2,500, but pretty much they're more expensive than any of the other types of greenhouses. So the cost of a polycarbonate greenhouse can cost you anywhere from, depending on if you get it on sale or not, and the type of construction is used, can go anywhere from $500 to $5,000, depending on the size, the type of construction is used, and things like that. For my particular greenhouse, I actually got a 6x8, which is fine for me, and it's an aluminum frame with channels that allows these polycarbonate panels to slide right in, and it's very secure. So the cost of these kind of greenhouses, again, can vary from $500 all the way up to $5,000. The next type of greenhouse is a polyethylene greenhouse. That is the kind of like the plastic sheeting that goes over like a hoop house. And those can be done as cheaply as $500. And then again, if it's a large hoop house, it can actually go up to a couple $1,000s. These are the most easily constructed ones. They also the plastic has to be replaced fairly often. So the maintenance on those is pretty great. These greenhouses and cold houses come in various sizes. I've seen as low as the size as low as 4x6, all the way up to 20x40. And so again, the sizes can vary greatly. You can almost get any size you want. Again, mine is a 6x8, and I have plenty of room. I can get about 150 trees in there. Again, most of my trees are small, and a lot of my trees I can sit on the ground. And so, but it makes it really convenient for me because it's easy to heat. It doesn't cost very much for me to heat a small area like that. And so I recommend a size that will best fit your needs. However, I will say this: once you purchase a greenhouse and you try to get the size that you want, you're probably going to later on wish that you had bought a size larger. That probably goes for any size you get. So just kind of keep that in mind. So we have the structure that's up, but besides the structure itself, the most important part of a greenhouse is the foundation. And there are many types of foundations that can be used for a greenhouse. You can put a concrete slab down. You can have just a dirt ground floor. You can put pavers down. You can use gravel. You can do all kinds of things. For my particular use, and I'll show that to you in just a second, my greenhouse is actually sits on um, 4x4s that are laid next to each other. So I have a total of 8 4x4s um, that are sitting next to each other. I have those on the ground. Um, they are staked with rebar into the ground, and then I have concrete all the way around the outside of it. For the inside, I wanted drainage inside, so what I did was I put down sand, and then I put pea gravel over the top of that. And I have pavers that go down the middle of it, and that way, when I water my trees during the wintertime, that water can seep into the ground. It also helps in aiding in the humidity and stuff like that. So foundations are very important. It's also very important that you secure your greenhouse to that foundation, and the foundation is securely attached to the ground to where uh, it can't be blown over or blown apart by high winds and things like that. So now let's talk about accessories for our greenhouses. There's probably an unlimited amount of accessories you can get for your greenhouse, but we'll start with some of the most important ones that I'm going to talk about. And the first one is fan. You need a fan in your greenhouse to circulate the air, otherwise it gets very stale in there. And so I actually have two fans. I have a vent that I use when it's possible during the wintertime. Sometimes it's not, but I do have the fans going um, at least during waking hours. And so there is some air circulation in this goes on inside the greenhouse using a fan. And I think it's a must. Next thing is the construction of your benches and what kind of benches you're going to use. Some people use metal benches, some people use tables. Um, I decided to build all of my benches using fence pickets and cutting strips. I think I used 27 uh, fence pickets for making the slats for my benches in there with a 2x4 construction. And they've worked out really well. So again, you can use any kind of material you want for your benches. I like the idea that having the wooden benches allows for the temperatures to be maintained a little bit easier inside the greenhouse. That's just an opinion. I think the metal ones, they cool off too quick, and they don't hold the temperature as well as some of the wooden ones. Heating your greenhouse during the wintertime. I've seen several ways that you can do that, and the way that several people have done that. I've seen people use compost piles next to the greenhouse and have it vented inside of the greenhouse. I don't particularly like that one. Some people use oil heaters because there's no hot coils that are exposed to the inside of the greenhouse. I use a electric heater with a ceramic core, and which has all kinds of protections. It has tip over protection, has overheating protection, and so I'm very confident and feel safe with that particular heater in there. And I can actually maintain the temperature really well. It's called a Dreo heater. It's on Amazon. It's only like $50. Actually, I think it's less than $50 now. And so it works really, really well. And I recommend it highly. It does have a thermostat. It's got a remote, although I still have to go out to the greenhouse to check on it from time to time. But you can set it and forget it pretty much in the wintertime because it will automatically come on when the temperature reaches a certain level. The levels are from 41 up to 85 degrees. And so, like I said, last year I had it set right at 41, 42 degrees. And this year I'm going to set it at 48 degrees. I've already tested it out because we've had a couple of cool mornings and it's worked really well. So again, there's numerous ways to heat your greenhouse. Just be real safe about it. Let's talk thermometers. I actually have 3 different thermometers inside of my greenhouse. I have one that's just an analog that sits on a wall, and our bench, and it just tells. I can look at it really quick, and it tells me the temperature I need to know. I also have another high-low temperature thermometer, and it tells me what the high of the day was and what the low of the day was. I reset that every day. And then the third one I have is I have a sensor inside there, made by Accurite, that goes to the end of the house, and I can see the temperature of my greenhouse at any time. So if for some reason at night the greenhouse is not warming up when the temperatures drop below the threshold that I've had, I can go out there and to see what's going on. And it's worked out really well. I've only had to go out there one time actually in the last 3 years to reset the thermostat, and that was because we had a power outage and it didn't reset when I did. So thermometers are really important to make sure that you can maintain the right temperature inside of the greenhouse, and I recommend them highly. Some people have humidifiers inside of the greenhouse. Again, we're going to kind of talk about levels right now. I don't have a humidifier in there. I don't even check the humidity levels in there. Again, we're talking about levels. It's not something that I'm really interested in since my trees are going to be outside for approximately 9 out of the 12 months. I feel like without a humidifier or checking the humidity levels, that my trees can make it for the 3 months that they're inside of this greenhouse. And so it's probably important to have, but I don't have one. So watering systems. I know people that have misting systems inside of the greenhouse. Those are people that usually, I'm not going to say usually, those are people that maybe use their greenhouse during the late spring and early fall, or they want just the convenience of not having to worry about watering their trees. For myself, I actually have a 3-gallon tank that I use, battery operated, so I can mist all my trees and water all my trees inside of the greenhouse. And plus, I enjoy doing that. It allows me to go out to the greenhouse, spend some time out there, check all my trees while I'm out there. And so that kind of watering system is really nice. I had the pump system before, but you kind of get tired pumping that thing all the time. And so this battery operated one was only about $40, and it works tremendously well. And so I highly recommend something like that if you're going to self-water or water inside of your greenhouse. So in conclusion, that's about all I have about greenhouses. Just remember that a lot of this information that I provided is through research, and some of it is opinion, some of it's through experience. And so all of these things is how I've come up with this presentation that I've given you. Hopefully it gives some of you some insight as to making the decision about a greenhouse. So now I'm going to give you a brief tour of my greenhouse that I have. It doesn't have hardly anything in it right now because, again, we're in the second week of September. It really doesn't start to get cold here until mid to late October, maybe early November. And so with that said, I'll give you a tour of my current greenhouse. This is actually the second version of this greenhouse because the first version was actually crushed by a tree on Memorial Day in May, and it crushed to the ground. I like this greenhouse so much that the size I was happy with. I decided to purchase the exact same one, and I just completed construction of it in mid-June, and it's actually constructed better, and the foundation is better than it was for the first time that I set it up. So let's go out there and take a look at my greenhouse. So here's my greenhouse. We'll go to the outside first. You can see I have a shade cloth on there. You can see the 4x4 construction on the bottom and how it's anchored into the ground. I didn't mention it in the previous part of the video, but I have the entire outside of the greenhouse cemented in with all of the seams on the bottom are cemented in. On this side of the greenhouse, I have it blocking some of the wind and the sun from that direction. Pea gravel on the outside. Little patio there. If we go inside, you can see the pavers that I have on the bottom, pea gravel on the bottom, These are all my shelves, 3 levels, with open areas for larger trees. There's one thermometer I have in here. There's another thermometer that I have in here that has high-low on it. And then I have another, my sensor is there for remote sensing of the temperature. And so have a vent here, have a solar fan right there, have another fan right there. And so this is my greenhouse. So there's the tour of my greenhouse. I hope you enjoyed that. And if this discussion helped you in any way, or if you enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe if you will. Thanks again, and we'll see you next time.